Hi class, this is course 3, lesson 12, decimal numbers. Okay, this first part here, we don't need to write this down, but review the place value chart on page 78. If you find it helpful to copy that down, go ahead. The places to the right of the decimal are the common places that you know: millions, hundred thousands, 10,000s, thousands, hundreds, tens, ones. Decimal point. To the left, that becomes the THS. The fractional components: tenths, hundredths, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions. Okay, the place value increases by tens and decreases by powers of 10 to the left. The THS lets us know when we hear it that that's what we're talking about, portions smaller or fractions of units, okay? When you read, this is pretty important, when you read decimal numbers, you say "and" only when you get to the decimal. So this is the only place you should say the word "and." And I know we're all guilty of it over here. We say something and, 10,001, but that's not where it goes. We don't say it until the decimal point. Okay, so this number here, let me get back here just a second. Read the decimal portion as a whole number and name the final place value. Okay, so what's that mean? So this number here, 4,032,921, and then we say this, 402, and determine what place value that 2 is in. That'd be the thousands. So this is and 402 thousandths. Make sure you get that THS on the end. Okay, if you want to compare decimals, we need to line the decimal points up. Okay, so I'm going to do that first. We're going to put all of these decimal points in a line so that we can compare the values in the places, in the place value, the same place value, to see which one is bigger. Okay, so we're going to compare from the left to the right in place value. So if we look in the tenths position, we have a 4, a 5, a 4, a 0, and a 5. Okay, so this one with the 0 would be the smallest because it doesn't have any tenths. The next ones we'd need to look at would be the ones with the 4s because 4 is smaller than 5. So since we have 2 with the 4, we go to the next place value. So in the hundredths place, we have a 2 here, and there's nothing there, right? Well, we can add zeros trailing the decimal, and it doesn't change the value at all. Since there's a 0 now, we can see we have 0 hundredths here, but we have 2 hundredths here. So 0 would be the next one, and 2 would be the third, as long as we're lining them up in increasing order. Okay, now the 5s, right? We're done with the 4s in the tenths place, so we look at the 5s. And again, we have nothing here. So we can put a 0, and 0 in the hundredths, 2 in the hundredths. This one would come next, so 4 and 5. So hopefully you have that, or you can pause it or rewind this. I'm going to drag these around. So we have this one first, then this one, then 42 hundredths, then 5 tenths, and then we have 521 thousandths. Okay, so that's how you compare decimals. Okay, so now we're going to do some conversions from decimal to fraction, from fraction to decimal, from decimal to percent, and percent to decimal. And I'm going to try to do 2 examples for each one. Okay, so first example, we have the decimal, I'm going to put the leading 0, 82 hundredths. Okay, decimal to fraction is really very simple. If you say it, 82 hundredths, that makes your fraction. That becomes 82 out of 100. And then you need to simplify. And let's see, I'm going to start with 2. Let's see what that gets us. Divide each of those by 2. We get 41 out of 50. And that's as simplified as we can get there. Okay, so again, just say the place, say it out loud, say the place value, write your fraction, and then reduce. Well, what happens if you have a whole number? So this is 3 6/10, and we want that as a fraction. Well, if we have a whole number, we're just going to end up with a mixed number as our fraction. So it's 3 6/10, which becomes 3 6/10. And again, simplify your fraction. So we're going to divide both of those by 2, which is going to be 3 3/5. Okay, again, do not just put the 3/5 here. Put that whole number there for me. I'm going to go to over here. We'll do fraction to decimal next. Fraction, if we have 1/4 and we want to make that into a decimal, some of these you're just going to know. 1/4 is the same thing as 2500ths, right? 0.25. Again, if this were, do another example, if this were like 2 5/10, we have that whole number. Oh, excuse me. I'll give you the answer before I even tell you the problem. If you have 2 1/2, there we go. That's better. We still have that whole number part. So we have 2 with the decimal, and you should know that 1/2 is the decimal 0.5, 5/10. Here's a third example. If you have a fraction like 7/8. Okay, now this is another one that maybe you know what it is, but if you don't know what it is, you divide it. Okay, so 8 will go into 7 how many times? Okay, so put that decimal up there. I'm going to put a leading 0 just so I know where the decimal is. 8 will go into 78 times, 64, 60, 756, and then looks like I need to add another 0, and that'll be 5. So my decimal is 875 thousandths. Okay, let's go over here and do some examples where we're converting from decimal to percent. Here's example 1. If I have a decimal, 0.125, otherwise known as 125 thousandths, we're going to multiply that times 100%. Okay, well, decimal point 125 times 100 moves the decimal 2 places to the right, which gives us 12.5% or 12.5%, either way. Okay, another example, decimal point 0.04. Okay, so 4/100ths, again, multiply that times 100%, which gives us 4%. And when you say that 4/100ths, that should key you in that it's just 4 out of 100. Again, decimal goes 2 places to the right. Okay, that's a good, you're multiplying by 100, so decimal moves 2 places to the right. Changing from a percent to a decimal, example 1, we have 8%. Again, you can change that to the fraction 8 out of 100, and then you can simplify, or you can look at that and say, oh, 8 out of 100, so that's 8/100ths, so that is decimal point 0.08. Okay, if you simplify, then you'll have to divide if it's not even out of 100. Option 2, or example 2, 150% is 150 out of 100. And that one can be kind of tricky because you have more, right? You know that you have more than more pieces out of the possible number of groups. So you have, it's an improper fraction, so you have a number more than one. So you know that you have one whole number at least. If you simplify that, you will end up with 1.5, 1.5. Percent to decimal, since you're dividing by 100, your decimal moves 2 places to the left. Okay, and again, that's because we are dividing by 100, and over here we are multiplying by 100. Okay, so I had a little bit of trouble today going through these examples. Hopefully I didn't lose you. If you have questions, please make sure you ask, and I will see you in class.